Let me ask you something important before we begin. Have you ever noticed how your mind can be your greatest ally or your worst enemy? How in one moment everything feels possible, and in the next, a single thought can drain your energy, steal your peace, and make even simple things feel heavy. That silent voice in your head, the one no one else hears, has the power to shape your entire life. And the truth is, most people are being controlled by it without even realizing it. Right now, somewhere in the world, people are facing pressure, loss, uncertainty, and fear. Some are breaking under it, others are rising stronger than ever. Same world, same problems, completely different inner experience. The difference is not luck, intelligence, or circumstances. The difference is how they think, how they interpret, and how they respond. What if I told you that happiness is not something you wait for, chase, or hope will arrive someday? What if I told you that even in difficult moments, you have more control over your emotions than you've ever been taught? And what if, by the end of this video, you could learn how to interrupt negative thoughts, regain emotional control, and create inner peace no matter what life throws at you? Stay with me until the end, because this is not just motivation, this is understanding. And once you understand how your mind really works, you stop being a victim of emotions and start becoming the creator of your inner world. Your focus is the steering wheel of your emotional life. Whatever you consistently place your attention on begins to shape how you feel, how you think, and ultimately how you act. The human brain is designed to move toward whatever it repeatedly notices. When your attention is locked onto problems, mistakes, fears, or things you cannot control, your nervous system reacts as if those problems are growing bigger and more dangerous. Stress increases, energy drops, and happiness feels distant, not because life suddenly became worse, but because your focus trained your mind to experience it that way. Focus works like a mental magnifying glass. A small issue, when constantly replayed in your thoughts, can feel overwhelming, while a small positive moment, when consciously focused on, can expand into a deep sense of satisfaction and peace. The mind does not objectively measure reality, it interprets it based on attention. If you repeatedly focus on what is missing, the brain creates a feeling of lack. If you focus on uncertainty, the brain creates anxiety. If you focus on past pain, the brain relives it as if it is happening now. Emotions follow focus automatically without asking permission. What most people do not realize is that focus is not fixed. It is a skill that can be trained. Every day you are practicing focus, whether you are aware of it or not. Scrolling through negative news, replaying arguments, imagining worst-case scenarios, and comparing yourself to others are all forms of focused attention that train your emotional state toward dissatisfaction. In the same way, deliberately noticing progress, solutions, learning, and appreciation trains the brain to produce calmer and more empowering emotions. The brain strengthens whatever pathways are used most often, so repeated focus becomes emotional habit. This is why two people can experience the same event and feel completely different about it. One focuses on loss and feels defeated, while the other focuses on opportunity and feels motivated. The event is neutral. Focus gives it emotional color. When you consciously redirect attention, you are not denying reality, but choosing which part of reality deserves your energy. Even in difficult situations, there is always something to learn, something to appreciate, or something to prepare for. By choosing where your attention goes, you decide whether your mind becomes a place of struggle or a source of strength. The moment you shift focus, your emotional state shifts with it. This is not positive thinking, it is emotional mechanics. Focus determines feeling, feeling determines behavior, and behavior determines outcomes. When you learn to guide your focus intentionally, you stop being a victim of circumstances and begin shaping your inner experience from the inside out. Meaning is the invisible filter through which every experience passes before it becomes an emotion. Nothing in life automatically carries emotional power on its own. It is the interpretation you attach to an event that determines how it makes you feel. Two people can face the same failure, rejection, or loss, yet one feels crushed while the other feels challenged or even inspired. The difference is not the event itself, but the meaning assigned to it. The human mind is constantly asking, often unconsciously, what does this mean for me? And the answer to that question shapes emotional reality. When an experience is given a negative meaning, such as seeing a mistake as proof of personal inadequacy or a setback as a permanent defeat, the emotional response becomes heavy and limiting. The body reacts with tension. The mind narrows its thinking, and motivation decreases. On the other hand, when the same experience is given an empowering meaning, such as seeing a mistake as feedback or a setback as preparation for something greater, the emotional response changes instantly. Confidence, curiosity, and resilience begin to replace fear and frustration. Even though the external situation has not changed, most people believe meaning is automatic and fixed. But in truth, it is learned and often borrowed from past experiences, upbringing, or social conditioning. Early failures, criticism, or disappointment can teach the mind to label challenges as threats rather than opportunities. Over time, these interpretations become habits so fast and familiar that they feel like facts. However, meaning is not reality, it is a mental choice. The mind can be trained to question old interpretations and consciously choose new ones that support growth rather than suffering. Changing meaning does not require denying pain or pretending everything is positive. It requires asking better questions. Instead of asking why something went wrong, the mind can ask what this situation is teaching. Instead of assuming rejection means unworthiness, the mind can interpret it as redirection or misalignment. These shifts may seem subtle, but they carry enormous emotional consequences. Meaning acts as the bridge between events and emotions, and when that bridge is rebuilt, emotional reactions change naturally. Over time, consciously choosing empowering meanings strengthens emotional stability. Life still presents challenges, but they no longer feel like personal attacks or dead ends. They become signals for adaptation, growth, and deeper self-awareness. By mastering the meanings you assign to experiences, you gain control over your emotional responses, regardless of external circumstances. This ability transforms suffering into understanding and confusion into clarity, allowing happiness to exist even in imperfect situations. Emotional state is not something that randomly appears and disappears. It is something that can be intentionally created and managed. Most people wait for external conditions to change before they allow themselves to feel better, believing that motivation, confidence, or happiness should arrive on its own. In reality, emotional states are the result of specific patterns involving the body, focus, and inner language. When these patterns are repeated daily, they become automatic responses. This is why some people remain calm under pressure while others feel overwhelmed by minor challenges. The body plays a critical role in shaping emotional experience. Posture, breathing, facial expression, and movement send constant signals to the brain about how to feel. Slouched posture, shallow breathing, and stillness communicate stress or helplessness, while upright posture, deep breathing, and purposeful movement signal confidence and control. By changing physical behavior, emotional chemistry shifts. This is not imagination or self-deception, it is a biological response. The nervous system reacts first to physical cues and thoughts follow afterward. Focus and internal dialogue further reinforce emotional states. The words repeated internally act as commands to the brain. Harsh self-criticism or catastrophic thinking strengthens negative states, while intentional, empowering language creates stability and motivation. When combined with focused attention on solutions, learning, or progress, emotional energy becomes constructive rather than draining. Over time, the brain associates certain patterns of thought and movement with specific emotional outcomes, turning them into habits. Because emotional states are learned, they can also be retrained. Just as muscles grow through repetition, emotional control develops through practice. Daily rituals such as intentional breathing, controlled movement, and conscious thought redirection teach the nervous system how to return to balance more quickly after stress. The goal is not to eliminate negative emotions, but to reduce their duration and intensity. Mastery lies in the ability to shift states deliberately instead of being dragged by them. When state management becomes a skill, emotional resilience increases dramatically. Challenges no longer hijack the mind for extended periods, and setbacks do not define identity or future potential. Instead of reacting impulsively, there is space to respond with clarity and strength. This skill empowers individuals to perform at higher levels, maintain inner stability, and access happiness regardless of circumstances, because emotional well-being is no longer dependent on external control but on trained inner discipline. Negative thoughts are not natural truths, they are patterns that have been practiced repeatedly over time. Every belief, fear, or self-doubt began as a single thought that was reinforced through repetition, emotional intensity, or past experiences. The brain is designed to learn through repetition, which means it strengthens whatever mental pathways are used most often. When a person repeatedly thinks in negative ways, the brain becomes efficient at producing those thoughts automatically, even when they are no longer useful or accurate. Most negative thinking originates from past conditioning. Childhood experiences, criticism, failures, or emotional pain can teach the mind to anticipate danger or rejection. What once served as protection can later become limitation. Over time, these thoughts become so familiar that they feel like part of identity rather than learned responses. The mind starts to react before awareness steps in, creating emotional discomfort without conscious choice. However, familiarity does not equal truth. These thoughts persist not because they are correct, but because they are rehearsed, unlearning. Negative thoughts requires awareness first. A thought loses power the moment it is observed rather than believed. When a negative idea appears, such as self-doubt or fear, it can be recognized as a mental habit instead of a fact. This shift creates psychological distance, weakening emotional impact. Replacing the thought with a more realistic or empowering interpretation begins the process of rewiring. The brain does not distinguish between imagined and repeated reality, so new thought patterns, when practiced consistently, become the new default. Repetition is the key to transformation. Just as negative thoughts were learned through frequent use, positive or neutral thoughts must be repeated to gain strength. This does not mean ignoring problems or forcing optimism. It means choosing thoughts that support problem-solving, self-respect, and emotional balance. Over time, neural pathways associated with negativity weaken from lack of use, while new pathways grow stronger through consistent reinforcement. Emotional intensity accelerates learning. When new, empowering thoughts are paired with strong emotional engagement, such as confidence, gratitude, or relief, the brain adopts them more quickly. This is why affirmations combined with feeling are more effective than words alone. As the mind learns new patterns, negative thoughts still appear occasionally, but they no longer dominate behavior or self-image. The individual gains control over mental habits, proving that the mind is not fixed but adaptable, capable of learning and relearning throughout life. Gratitude has a unique ability to shift emotional states because it directly changes what the mind is paying attention to in the present moment. The human brain is wired to search for problems as a survival mechanism, which means it naturally scans for threats, flaws, and missing pieces. While this instinct once protected life, in modern situations it often produces unnecessary stress and negativity. Gratitude interrupts this pattern by redirecting attention away from what is wrong and toward what is already supportive, meaningful, or sufficient. When a person consciously practices gratitude, the nervous system begins to relax. Stress hormones decrease, and the brain moves out of survival mode into a state of balance. This shift happens quickly because gratitude and fear cannot fully occupy the mind at the same time. As attention settles on appreciation, the emotional charge of negative thoughts weakens. The situation may remain difficult, but the inner experience becomes calmer and more grounded. Gratitude does not deny challenges, it changes the emotional relationship with them. Gratitude also reshapes perception over time. When the brain repeatedly focuses on things that are working, it becomes more skilled at noticing positive details that were previously ignored. Small moments, such as support from others, personal progress, or simple comforts, begin to stand out more clearly. This retraining of attention gradually builds emotional resilience. Instead of being overwhelmed by what is missing, the mind learns to balance reality with acknowledgement of what is present and valuable. Another powerful aspect of gratitude is its impact on meaning. Appreciating lessons, growth, or inner strength within difficult experiences reframes hardship into something purposeful. This does not remove pain, but it prevents suffering from becoming overwhelming or hopeless. Gratitude turns experience into insight, allowing emotions to move rather than remain stuck. Over time, this creates a sense of inner stability that does not depend entirely on external success or comfort. Consistency is what makes gratitude transformative. Occasional appreciation brings temporary relief, but daily practice rewires emotional patterns. Writing, reflecting, or mentally listing things to be grateful for trains the brain to default toward balance instead of complaint. As this habit strengthens, negative thoughts lose intensity and frequency. The mind becomes less reactive, more present, and more capable of experiencing happiness even during uncertainty or pressure. Gratitude becomes not just an emotion, but a mental skill that sustains emotional well-being across changing circumstances. Choice is the final and most powerful layer of emotional freedom. While human beings cannot control every event, reaction, or external outcome, there is always control over response. Between what happens and how it is handled, there is a mental space where decision exists. Most emotional suffering comes from forgetting this space and reacting automatically based on habit, fear, or past conditioning. When this awareness is restored, personal power returns. Every moment presents options, even when they are not obvious. A person can choose how much meaning to give an event, what to focus on afterward, and what action to take next. These choices may seem small, but they compound over time. Choosing calm over panic, reflection over blame, or action over avoidance slowly reshapes emotional identity. Responsibility replaces helplessness, and confidence grows from the realization that inner direction is always available. People often believe they have no choice during intense emotional experiences, but this belief itself is a learned pattern. Strong emotions feel controlling because they trigger automatic responses in the nervous system. However, awareness interrupts this cycle. The moment a person recognizes an emotional reaction as temporary, choice reappears. Even choosing to pause, breathe, or step back is an act of control that prevents emotions from dictating behavior. This does not mean suppressing feelings, it means deciding how they are expressed and used. Choice also applies to internal dialogue. Thoughts may arise without permission, but engagement with them is optional. A person can choose whether to believe a thought, question it, or redirect attention elsewhere. Over time, this choice weakens the authority of negative thinking. The mind learns that it does not have to obey every mental impulse. This shift creates emotional independence, where self-worth and happiness are no longer hostage to circumstances or moods. Living from choice rather than reaction builds long-term resilience. Life continues to present uncertainty, loss, and pressure, but these experiences no longer define emotional direction. Instead of being pulled by circumstances, there is an inner compass guiding behavior and attitude. This awareness transforms adversity into a test of character rather than a source of defeat. By consistently choosing responses aligned with growth and values, emotional stability becomes a practice skill, allowing happiness to exist even when life is imperfect. As we come to the end, remember this. Happiness is not something outside of you waiting to be found. It is something built from the inside, moment by moment, choice by choice. Your focus shapes how, why, feel. The meaning you give events shapes your emotional reality, and your ability to manage your state determines how powerfully you show up in life. Negative thoughts are not permanent enemies. They are learned patterns that can be unlearned. Gratitude gives you the fastest shift when your mind feels heavy, and no matter what situation you face, you always have the power to choose your response. When these truths come together, life no longer feels like something happening to you, but something you are actively shaping with awareness and intention. You don't need a perfect life to feel at peace. You need clarity, practice, and the courage to take responsibility for your inner world. The moment you start applying what you've learned, even in small ways, you'll notice a change in how you think, how you feel, and how you move through challenges. Growth doesn't require overnight transformation. It requires consistency and belief in your ability to improve. Every time you choose focus over fear, meaning over suffering, and gratitude over complaint, you strengthen the version of yourself that refuses to give up. I wish you strength on difficult days, clarity in moments of confusion, and confidence when doubt tries to hold you back. May you continue moving forward with purpose, patience, and self-belief. Thank you for giving your time, your attention, and your openness to this message. Stay committed to your growth, trust the process, and good luck on your journey ahead.